All right, welcome to another episode of 7 Minutes with Jesus. I am coming in late this week. I'm very sorry about that, but we're getting it done on a Friday evening, finishing up John chapter 4. Let's start in John chapter 4, verse 46 through the end of the chapter, verse 54. So John chapter 4, starting in verse 46. So he came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And at Capernaum there was an official whose son was ill. When this man heard that Jesus had come from from Judea to Galilee, he went to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So Jesus said to him, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." The official said to him, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Jesus said to him, "Go, your son will live." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. And as he was going down, the servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked them the hour when he began to get better, and they said to him, "Yesterday, at the 7th hour." The fever left him. The father knew that this was the hour when Jesus had said to him, "Your son will live." And he himself believed, and all of his household. This was now the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. Okay, so John points to 7 signs in his gospel, and this is the second one, the first one being turning water to wine. And these two are linked because at the beginning of this story, in verse 46, it says that he's come back to Cana in Galilee, where he had previously made the water wine. So people remember him, people know him, from this miraculous thing that he did. And so it makes sense that this official at Capernaum, when his son is ill, he knows that Jesus is someone who can heal him. And so he seeks Jesus out. So when this man hears that Jesus has come from Judea to Galilee, he goes to him and he wants his son to be healed. His son is dying. I love this story because I think it forms such a perfect picture of our condition when we approach Christ. This official who seems to be some kind of a notable person who remains anonymous in the gospel, but someone who is well known, a government official it seems, comes to Jesus and asks him to heal his son because why? Well, his son is going to die. When we were in sin, we were all dying. We were killing ourselves with our sin, and Jesus is what saves us. So Jesus says to him, and really in the original Greek, it seems a little bit more like Jesus is saying this aloud to everyone standing around in verse 48, where he says, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." And it seems like a kind of a cold, callous thing for Jesus to say, especially when you've got this guy in front of him begging him essentially to save his son. But I think Jesus is pointing out that a lot of the people that came around listening to him and following him were interested in the miraculous, wonderful things that he was doing, and for good reason. Those things were incredible. And no one in the history of the world has performed miraculous deeds in the same way that Jesus did. But Jesus invited the people who followed him in his time and us to believe in him for more than just the wonderful signs that he did. Those signs were meant to confirm his messiahhood, his messiahness, but they were not meant to be the rock on which you build your faith. What you build your faith on is the words of Christ and believing that what he said is true and that his life and his essence are true. And so when the official says, "Sir, please come down, my child is going to die," Jesus sees his faith and says to him, "Go, your son will live." So we all are this official begging Jesus, "Come down to the place where I live." You know, that's what this man expects Jesus to do. "Come down to the place where I live, dwell with me, otherwise my child will die." Or in our case, "Otherwise I will die if I do not have Christ dwelling with me." And Christ sees our faith and recognizes it, and as a result, he gives life. So the man believed and in the Greek, it's something like the man took Jesus at his word when Jesus said to him that his son would live, and he goes home. And his servants come running to him and they say, your son is recovered. And he wants to know when. When did he start getting better? And they tell him yesterday at the 7th hour, which would have been about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the fever left him. And the father knows that this was the time that Jesus said to him, your son will live. And so he believes and his whole household believes. And I think this is supposed to show us something of how the gospel works. When we've been healed, when we've had people we love healed, there's no debating with that. There's no arguing with that. We simply trust in the thing that healed us. There's another place in the Gospels where Jesus heals a blind man, and he's called in and interrogated by the Jewish authorities, and they ask him all these questions about the nature of Jesus, and he says, listen, I don't know what kind of a person this man is or who he is. All I know is that I was blind, and now I see. And that is what my trust, my belief is built on. And so it's the same thing for us. We've been healed of our sins, and that is what should bind us to Christ. And this is the second sign that Jesus did when he came from Judea to Galilee. Of course, there were many signs that Jesus performed, but John focuses on certain signs which confirm Jesus' place and purpose as the Messiah. So I think that's a good place to leave off for today. We are next going to talk about healing at the pool on the Sabbath, the pool of Bethsaida, which will tie in quite well with all this. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on 7 Minutes with Jesus.